Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Anderson. Today is number 14 in my series about dealing with, managing, surviving, and even possibly thriving amid the stress of the COVID event. Today is entitled Nightmares, Dreams, and COVID Stress. What our dreams and nightmares can teach us about managing and recovering from extreme stress. Now, last week when I finished my number 13, I thought, wow, that's a lot of conversation about managing stress. Each of those videos is at least 20 minutes long, some of them longer. And that's a lot of things to say about how to manage stress. What else can I say? And so I did what I often do, almost daily, is I meditated and I prayed about it. And the basic prayer that I pray is I open myself to divine guidance. I open my mind, my heart, my being to divine guidance. And then I try to be sensitive to it. I try to pay attention. So I noticed that if I do that every day, I do better in every aspect of my life. And that's certainly a technique for getting through stress and difficulty, but it's a wonderful technique simply for having satisfying, productive, meaningful days. So I did it last week. I prayed that prayer, and I said it more than once because I was a little bit anxious about, well, I've got all that information out there. What in the world else? And then something happened. Of course it happened. And I really wasn't surprised. I imagine some people might be, but hopefully when you hear what I have to tell you today, you will not be surprised when you get answers to that kind of prayer the way I got my answer to this one. My answer to that prayer last week, I opened myself to divine guidance, meaning, please give me the next topic. What do I need to talk about? Then I had a nightmare. And the nightmare contained the answer to my request. I think it was Thursday or Friday night of last week, middle of the night. I woke up from a nightmare screaming so loud. Of course, I woke myself and my wife up. And it took me a while to go back to sleep, as it usually does after anybody has a nightmare. And this was a true, real nightmare. It was very short. I'm going to tell you what it was, what happened in it right now, and then I'm going to tell you the meaning of it, or what I seem to think is the meaning of it, in a few minutes. But the nightmare, someone, in this case it was a doctor, was standing behind me doing something to my back that was so excruciatingly painful that I was screaming, and he would not stop. He just kept doing whatever this thing was to my back over and over until I just burst out in screaming so much that I woke up. Now, how in the world could that possibly be an answer to my prayer? Well, let me tell you a little bit about dreams before I go to this one and what its meaning was. Because what I'm going to do is tell you what happened with me and then bring you into the conversation as I'm talking about this. It applies to you. Probably every single person who is listening to this, at least some of the time in your life, remembers your dreams, because the truth is everyone dreams every night. Research over the past 75 years has proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now you may say, well, I don't ever remember any dreams, or I only remember a dream maybe once a year or every month. That's fine. What's happening with you is you are dreaming throughout the night, and for whatever reasons you have not remembered them. But everybody dreams, and the research says you can tell when a person is dreaming based on rapid eye movement, or we call it REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. You're asleep, your eyes begin to move around, and then if a person is waked up in the middle of the rapid eye movement experience out of deep sleep, they always are in the midst of a dream. So that's one of the major ways we know a person dreams. So, and they seem to be essential to our mental and emotional well-being, even though we don't remember them. Because the other research says if you keep waking a person up so that they can't dream, they start to hallucinate. My way of describing it is if you don't allow a person to have a dream in the night 2 or 3 or 4 times, they begin to have them in the waking time, meaning they hallucinate. It's pretty upsetting. If you deprive a person of sleep for 2, 3, 4 days, they start to have the same experience. So, fact number 1 is everybody dreams every single night. Not everyone remembers those dreams, but periodically, almost everybody remembers dreams. And in working with clients over the years about dreams, I've discovered, as many other coaches and counselors and dream therapists and all kinds of other people who work with dreams have discovered, if a person comes in and says, Matthew, I don't remember my dreams at all, I say, would you like to? They say, really? Yes, I would, because they can be incredibly useful, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I say, get a pad of paper or a journal, put it beside your bed, get a pen or a pencil, put it there, and say to yourself, you can say it in your head, and you can consider it a prayer or something you repeat in your own mind, I want to remember my dreams. And then the second rule is, no matter what dream you remember, you write it all down in detail. Now, inevitably, people say to me, I have these weird dreams. I had a weird dream. It's almost like an apology. It's almost as if the person is saying to me, am I crazy because I had this really strange dream and all these weird things were happening? My answer to that is no, probably you're not crazy. That's a joke, really. It's dreams come from a different space. They're usually highly symbolic. They try to talk to us in a different way than we're usually experiencing our lives, because they come from a place deep inside of us called the unconscious. And so they often feel very strange. You might, for example, be able to fly in a dream where you can't fly in regular life, but I've had many dreams where I walk down the street and open my arms and I just take off. Or you might see a person in the dream who looks like someone you never saw before, but in the dream you think of them as your mother or your father, your brother, your sister. It's a strange and interesting thing that dreams can do. So dreams live by other rules, and they come to us from the deepest part of ourselves. In the past 75 or 100 years, there's been something developed in Western society called depth psychology, meaning psychology that looks deep into the unconscious. Sigmund Freud was the number one pioneer of it, and his really kind of student, Carl Jung, developed it even more. They finally broke from each other, and Jung lived until, I think, the mid-1960s. He was the master of dream work and dream interpretation. His followers, Jung and his followers over the years, have done magnificent work in helping us understand the deep, useful, healing, guiding, life-changing qualities that can come to us in our dreams. And so, if you're really interested in dream work, you've got to connect somehow with Jungian psychology. Of course, you can go on YouTube and watch videos and read books. I don't recommend that you start by reading Jung, because he's so complicated and so difficult. The Jungian analysts are the people who interpret him the best, but I've read quite a bit of Jung over the years, and don't start with him. Okay, having said that, you dream every night, and sometimes you remember dreams. And if you write them down and begin to interact with them in some of the ways that I will share with you in a few moments, they can tell you many, many important things about your daily life, about your deeper self, about your goals, what you need to heal, guidance, all kinds of things. Now, in many cases, people have nightmares, and often when they are under significant stress, as has been the case for all of us during this time of COVID. Now, if, for example, you're having dreams more than you used to, or you're having upsetting dreams, dreams that make you scream the way I did in the middle of the night, please write them down and begin the task. Initially, it's not particularly an easy task, but I'm encouraging you to do it because it's really worthwhile. Begin the task of asking, what does this mean? Now, what does it mean if you have a nightmare? Now, a nightmare is a particularly powerful dream that is almost always very upsetting. That's why we call it a nightmare. It's an upsetting, scary. It's not inspiring. Usually we're being chased or attacked, or we're in some kind of pain about something, as I was. However, I am convinced that when we have a nightmare, it's bringing us information that we could or should be paying attention to in our waking life, but we're not paying enough attention. And our deeper self is saying, and in this case it was saying to me, Matthew, wake up! Pay attention to what's happening to you. Something destructive is going on and you need to pay attention. So as soon as I have a nightmare, I write it down and I begin to spend time thinking about it, exploring it, asking questions. So here I was, very brief dream. Some kind of doctor was behind me inflicting pain on my back. And I screamed loud enough to wake myself and my wife up. So I asked the question, what does this mean? What was really going on in this dream? A doctor causing me pain in my back. Now, you can do some literal interpretation of these things sometimes, and it really kind of helps. So I said, it's my back. Well, what's in my back? Well, it's my backbone is in my back. And my back is a place behind me that I cannot see. Some force is coming from behind me that's inflicting pain on my back. I also thought my back is something that we have a feeling of, something on your back. And this was a doctor, so I said, well, who's the doctor? How might that symbolize, what's this doctor symbolize something that is causing me pain on my back? I thought, oops. Maybe I'm the doctor. Now, here's the thing. For the past 2 weeks, the thought has been coming to me, and particularly the week before I had this nightmare. This thought has emerged in me. At the end of the day, I go home. My wife says to me, how was your day, honey? Usually, I say, it was a really important day. It was meaningful. It was helpful. I felt great about working with my clients. I made a video. I did this conversation with students and staff at this university, and I just, it was great. It was a great day. But what I've been saying more recently in the past 5 or 6 or 7 days before I had the nightmare was, I'm starting to get stressed. I realize I don't have any break from this thing. I try to keep my news watching down to 10 or 15 minutes a day. Sometimes I go a little bit over that if I get kind of hooked into it, but I'm holding that back. But Everybody's talking about it. And it's part of my job every day when I go in and talk to my clients, FaceTime, all the other ways that I reach out to them. How are you doing? And they tell me because I want to know. They're stressed about this. They're having trouble with it. They know people who are sick, or every once in a while someone knows someone who has actually died from it, or they're struggling with wearing a mask or getting out, or should they protect them. It goes on and on. All day long I have these conversations. And then I go home. We have to talk about it there. It's starting to wear on me. And I realized, once I had the nightmare, that I wasn't following all of my best advice that I'd been giving to people for the last 13 videos. It always makes me laugh when I don't follow my own directions, and then I suffer from it. So, it's been raining a lot, and I haven't been getting outside as much. I haven't been kayaking in 3 weeks, and that is a really nurturing thing that we do together down here in Florida. Out on the rivers and the streams, and sometimes even into the edge of the ocean. Kayaking for hours, it's so peaceful. It really nurtures my soul. I haven't been walking outside as much because we've had enormous amounts of rain, and I just don't get out much when that's going on. I think I've been meditating enough, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I need to spend more time doing that. Maybe I need to spend more time alone, because I've been doing a lot of communicating with people with the FaceTime and other ways of reaching out. And so I started asking those questions. Am I really taking care of myself, or am I putting too much on my back so that I'm starting to experience a kind of a suffering? And I was waked up about it. And then I thought, okay, maybe that's the direction I need to go in the next video, is to talk about how dreams can be useful, because my dream woke me up. My nightmare woke me up. One thing about nightmares, often you'll have a nightmare, you don't pay attention, you decide it wasn't very meaningful, that was just something that happened, I ate something bad. It'll come back. Now, if you have a recurring nightmare, the theme in it is the same, or sometimes people even have identical nightmares over and over again, you really need to pay attention, because your deep unconscious is saying to you, hold it. Please pay attention to this. It will really harm you if you don't. It's a warning. Nightmares are warnings on some level. Okay. Now, I'm betting that there are many of you out there during this stressful time that are having more memories of more dreams than you usually do. I consider them, as did Jung, messages with numinous power. Now, if you know that word numinous, you're very, very unusual, because I've never heard anybody but Jungian analysts and Jungian psychologists really use this word in any meaningful way. Numinous comes from the Greek, and really what it means is divine, or divine energy. Carl Jung used to use it. I think he wanted to get away from the word God or divine, because people have their preconceived notions about that so much. So he used this word. He did not invent it, but he used it often. I think that dreams have numinous qualities. They have extra power. They come from a deep place in us that you might say God is speaking to us through the dream. Now, having said that, if you have a dream, how do you interact with it in a way that it becomes useful, that it can actually tell you what it wants to say to you? Now, I've already told you one thing that I highly recommend, and this is true for everybody who does dream work, and that is dreams are sensitive to our receptivity. If you say to your deeper self every night, I want to remember my dreams, what you're doing is sending a message to your deeper being, and you're saying, I care about what is going on in there. I honor you. I respect what you have to say. I'm not going to call you strange, weird, and crazy and just shut down. I'm going to be respectful. And I'm going to ask for a dream. I'm going to write it down on something more than a scrap of paper. That's why I said a pad of paper, better yet, get yourself a journal. I have maybe 15 dream journals that I've filled up over the years of working on dreams. Years ago in the 1980s, I went to see a Jungian analyst. He happened to be one of the few Jungian analysts in Hawaii when I lived there. I saw him every week for 3 years, and all we did was talk about dreams. Every time I'd go, sometimes I'd go in, his first name was Ramon, and I said, Ramon, I got this problem with my wife, and all this stuff, and he'd say, hold it, did you have a dream? Yes, always I had a dream. I didn't go Ramon without a dream. Sometimes I have more than one. And we would go and we'd talk about it, and that's all we did for 3 years, was use my dreams to explore my inner life. It was incredibly valuable. I stopped because we finally moved away from Hawaii. So, first you ask for them, then you honor them by writing them down. And I'm suggesting that they don't go into your phone or your iPad or your computer at first. At first, you write them down on a piece of paper. We are still deeply affected by the writing process, by the hand-to-paper process. Some people might take a little bit longer, and yes, of course, you can then put them into your devices if you want, but start by writing it down. The second thing is to assume, to have an attitude of receptivity. What are you trying to say to me? And then don't run to the internet. Usually I'll say go to Google and ask all kinds of questions. I love Google. I go to Google God knows how many times a day. Don't go straight to Google, because most of the stuff you're going to find about dream work and what they actually mean on the internet is not going to apply to you. It will probably not be accurate for you. Now, this is where the hard work comes. You have to hang out with it. Ask it what it means. Look for the symbolism. Ask simple questions. What is this telling me about my inner life? What might be missing in my life that this dream is bringing to me in terms of information? And then what happens then is it begins to trust your receptivity. The answers will begin to come. Now, as I said before, I know this is not an easy subject, but I know there are people out there who are having strong dreams, unusual dreams for you. Write them down. Ask for their meaning. If you want help, send me an email about them. dra@dracoach.com. Dr. A at dracoach.com. Send me your dream. I will help you ask questions. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it means. That's not my business. It's yours to discover that. But I will help you ask some questions that will help you move deeper into an intimate relationship with this beautiful, meaningful thing that arises from the divine part of you. Be well. Stay safe. God bless you.